Okay, so this time around, let's run the automation against a complex controller class. This one here. Let's try this. Let's take a look at the structure of this class first. So let's open this one. Let's close the other ones. Okay, so this controller class has about four methods in that. Each of a different type: get, create, update, delete. So essentially all the different types of REST method. This is a get mapping, this is post, this is put mapping, and finally there is a delete mapping. So what we will do is we will run the, and you also see that the style of writing the code is also different in each of these cases. This one is a straightforward conventional way of writing the code. That is, sorry, this one is with the functional way. This one is a straightforward, simple way of writing the code. This one again is functional programming, and this one again is simple. So we'll just try to see how the automation behaves in all these cases. What kind of output does it generate? Our main focus would be to find out for each of these different cases, each of these different HTTP type of request, how does the automation, what kind of output does the automation provide us. And you will also notice that these methods are different in a way that this input here is a path variable, whereas the second one is a request body. So the third one is a path variable and a request body. So all these combinations, we will have our automation run against all this combination. Okay. So again, we will go back to our automation directory, that is this one, app setup, and we will run the setup.bat. So again, the same steps. This is informational. This says, okay, give me the path of your parent path of your top level path of your application. This one says, give me the path where your application class exists. I want to generate the automation I want to auto generate the JUnit, so I say 1 and then I move forward. And then this is, give me the name of your target class, fully qualified name of your target class. Essentially what it wants is this one, this package, this name of your class. And go for it. So again, just a warning. Creating the environment, preparing for launching the automation. Okay, now it has gathered all the information that it needs. Okay, so back to the similar steps. It wants a confirmation that this is a REST controller. Yes, it is a REST controller. Okay, so now some very basic questions for you. It has detected that there is a delete API, delete call, and it requires ID 1. What is the please provide the valid input for ID1. Let's just check this out. Go to your application and search for this. Okay, there's a double. Okay, let's try. Okay, type 2 is part of your main context, and that's why we are not able to find that entirely. So let's look at this one, ID1. Okay, there is ID1 and delete mapping. This is what we are looking for. So ID1 is actually a integer. Okay, so we can provide some legal integer value, let's say 1. Okay, so this one here is a get mapping, and get mapping ID again, that also would be, that's the one we're looking for is here, get mapping ID. Again, ID is an integer, so we will provide it 2. Same way for put, again it's looking for ID for 3, and for post we'll give it another. Okay, for post it is looking for 2, so ID for post. I'll just search with this. Okay, this is post mapping, it has ID and loan ID. ID is an, so ID is an integer and loan ID is also an integer, so we'll give it that same. So ID is 4, and next class for loan ID we give it 5. Okay, so now it has detected what is the parameterized type inside the response entity. So let's try to find where this is. So essentially, this is a controller. There is a method get customer by ID. Okay, so for get customer by ID, it wants to know what is the parameterized type inside this response entity. So there is a response entity. This is the response entity, and it wants to know what is the type of this. Is a customer. Again, this customer is of type this, so we will simply give it that entire fully qualified name. Next question, what is the response entity, public response entity? Okay, this is what it has found, and this is the piece of code that it has found. And what is the number of input arguments in the external class method invocation here? So basically here, if you see this external class invocation, so let's search for this. What is the number of input arguments? So in this method, what is the number of input arguments in the external class? So this is a controller. So what are the external invocations that are done here? This is a Pojo, this is a Pojo, this is a Pojo. You can leave that. This is a Pojo. You can leave that. Here, this is an external class method invocation. That means this is a service, and this is the method that gets called. And what it is looking for is what is the number of input arguments in the external class. It is already provided this in the code snippet that it's looking for. So what is the number of input arguments in the external class? Number of input argument is 1. Okay, so now again the next question is in this code snippet, this code snippet, what is the parameterized type inside the optional? So there is a return type optional. What is the parameterized type inside the angular brackets? So you see this, this line of codes that it provided to us. In that, this one has a return type optional, and this is the parameter. Again, it's a customer, and we know that customer is this package. So basically, the same input that I had given it to you earlier, we'll give it to the same one. Okay. Next question. It says there are a number of methods that are inside that controller class. That way, the more number of methods, that we need a number of questions it may have for you, and that's the reason why we have this repeated questions. But none of the questions are repeating. Each is individual, distinct type of question that's coming up, and it needs this in order to make a determination that the generation logic is the correct one that it's using. Now for this one here, what is the number of input arguments in the external class method invocation? So again, we go here, try to find. Okay, so not build. So up to here. So it is looking for this piece of code. What is the number of input arguments in the external class? This is a controller. So this is an external class instance. This is the method that gets called, and number of arguments is 1 again. Okay, now again this one, where does it find this piece of code? This stub has a return type of optional parameterized. Okay, so which one are we looking for here? The one we're looking for is map response entity. Okay, so basically we're looking for this piece of code here. So essentially what it says is the stub has a return type of optional parameter, right? This stub has a return type. This is a stub. It's the stub in the sense the instance of the class that is external to this target class, that's called a stub. When it makes a call to this method, it has a return type of optional, and inside that optional the parameterized type is customer. Again, we know that. So it is requesting, it wants to know what is the type of that parameterized type. It is again customer. So we'll provide this, and that's it. It has already generated the JUnits for all the different types of methods that we asked it to, and the only thing it required from us is some very basic questions, basic inputs regarding our target class. And we exit, we go back to our main console. Here we press enter, go to the next step. Your auto generated classes JUnits are saved at the below location. Please review. So we will go to that location first. Here you see, let's see the latest one that is generated. Latest ones that are generated are these. This one is the one that's latest generated. Let's see, let's verify this inside our project. Here it is. This is the one that got generated. You see, it has generated a test for each of the methods inside your controller class: delete, update, create, and get. Now let's look at the construction of these methods. First method that it generated, test method that it generated, is for delete. Now delete, let's go to delete. So basically delete has a path variable of 1, and it is /id1 basically. API customers type 2 /id1. /id1 is a dynamic parameter. API customers type 2 /id1. This is the dynamic customer that it's called. So you see that it's created with double slash. It should really be with single, but it doesn't really matter. This also works. It's just a creation error. You can always manually correct it if you want to later on. So basically what this does is it makes the invocation to this particular delete endpoint, gets a result in the result actions, and there it checks whether the output, the response HTTP status of this return is a 2xx successful, whether it is a 200. So here if you see what it sends is once it executes, it sends HTTP OK, and here that's what is the assertion that we have made. Now assume that let's say if we had something like this, instead of OK we had something like accepted. Okay, this would fail. Let's assume that automation incorrectly generates, actually it should, accepted is also 201, it's 202, so let's give it something completely different. Let's give it some 400 bad request, which is of type 4xx. Okay, and here you have 2x. Obviously this verification would fail. So in those cases, this automation generates also gives you these options in the commented code, so that it becomes much easier for you to switch to the right option. You know that the return of this HTTP response code is a bad request, that means 4xx. You can simply pick it up from here and replace it here. That's it. So other than reducing a lot of manual effort for you, automation also provides you options very handy, so that you in case there are errors that come up in the output of the automation, you can quickly and easily change those to whatever the tweak those to the whatever the right option is. So you can just do this, and then this will in case this is bad request, then this will work for the corresponding, this test will work for the corresponding method. So earlier we'll revert it back now to what it was earlier, and this was not accepted, this was okay. All right, so we are back to the original status. So this is how the whole intent is, to make it convenient and fast for our engineer, for our developers, so they don't have to spend too much time figuring out the JUnit combinations here. All right, so now let's look at another method here. Let's look at update. In case of update, we see that it has invoked this API customers type 2.3. Here API customers, that's a context type 2, and whatever this ID is that we had provided for it. It has a path variable, and then it has a request body that we are sending inside it. So because it's a request body, it has added this particular line to the invocation. That means the content type that it is, the content type is application JSON, and the content that it is providing is a request body, and it is sending the what does it expect in the request body? It expects a customer. So it actually created the DTO object of type customer, this get customer, and it has already given it some sample legal inputs here, and that's what it is providing it as the body of this update. And then in the verification, what it does is, in the verification again, it is expecting this method is sending OK, that means it's a 2xx in the response status. And here we are verifying that is there an external method call? Yeah, there is an external method call here. The service is getting called, so service instance is calling service method get OPT customer by ID, and the response, the return type of this is optional customer. So what is it verifying? It is verifying that the service method that was called, that is get OPT customer by ID, is called exactly once. That's what is happening. It's called exactly once. That's what also it verifies. And then thirdly, it verifies that the return type is, the return HTTP status code is 2xx. Right, now let's look at what it is doing for create. So this is create is the post. That means it's the post call that it is calling. So let's take a look at the post. What is the post here? Post mapping is right here. So in the post mapping, we see that the endpoint that is called as API customers type 2 ID loan ID. API customers type 2 ID loan ID. So it has created the exact structure that is required for making this invocation. Again, the post method takes in a request body. Post method takes in a request body. It has to pass the request body, which is of type customer. That's what it is doing here. It is passing a request body of type customer to this post, and these IDs and loan IDs are part of the path variable. Those are also getting passed to it here. 4 and 5. What is the verification that it is doing after running? It is checking that it is verifying that the response status is a 2x is successful. And what does this method actually send you? Yeah, so it is actually okay. That means 2x is successful. And this is in case of get. In case of get, let's take a look what happens in case of get mapping. Yeah, so in case of get mapping, you see that it actually returns a content back. So here this get mapping takes a path variable, customer ID, which is an int, and it takes one parameter. So the invocation is like this: API customers type 2. That's it. That's the invocation of it. What does it stub? There is customer service IMPL type 1. You see this here? This is the get mapping. You see this? There is an external class method called the service class instance is calling service class method, and that needs to be stubbed, and that stubbing is done here when customer service IMPL type 1 calls get OPT customer by ID. That time you return a stubbed response back. All right, and thirdly, what do we verify? We're verifying that the HTTP status response that comes is a 2xx. That means it's a success response, and that's exactly what this method is also calling. Response entity okay, and that's what is getting sent in this case. All right, now so you see depending on the type of method and depending on the type of processing that is happening inside the method, automation has generated that kind of a corresponding JUnit test. Also depending on the type of input it takes, whether it's a path variable, whether it's a request body, the automation has generated that kind of, even the number of input arguments that are there, based on that it has generated the type of corresponding JUnit for us. So now we can go ahead and try to, so since there is no compilation error here, this is a legal JUnit because it has all the components of JUnit and there is no compilation. So we should feel confident to run this as is. So let's launch the auto generated JUnit and see whether it actually runs, and then see what is the coverage that the automation has accomplished. So it has it is invoking that specific JUnit class. Okay, so there were 4 methods. It has run 4 tests and all 4 are success. It will now launch the JUnit report, and you see the E5 and decreased. I can't tell why it has decreased, but let's go to the actual controller class. Okay, yeah, that can be explained. In this controller class, the one that we ran it for is type 2, and you see we have 91% coverage for this particular class.